Welcome to Hired How to Get the Jobs weekly update. Today, I'm gonna do something different. Normally, I try to do 2 or 3 topics and I end up barely getting through 2 or 3 topics, and then Q&A goes long. Got a lot of questions yesterday on LinkedIn, a lot of questions from clients this week. So even if Facebook's a little light with the Q&A, I have a lot of questions I want to get to today. So we're only going to be discussing one topic, well, really two. A quick federal update. Try to do that for Facebook because Facebook's more of a US audience. And then an emotion intelligence interview guide. If you're going to be going through an interview in the next 2 hours to 2 years, you are going to want to sit down and listen to this, because this is the way most interviews are done in the latter stages of the process. And this information could be critical for you to actually get hired, not just getting interviewed. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll be taking Q&A. So my name is Tony Martin. This is Hired How to Get the Jobs weekly update. Thanks so much for joining. I write a little blog called howtogetthejob.blog, and most of the content that I like to discuss is over on that blog. Certainly check it out. But as you saw maybe earlier, or you can see now, certainly be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because if you like this content, you like the questions, you like the information, you'll want to go over there, because that's where I really stream everything and I try to capture all of it. So go check that out. And if you've been following me on Instagram this week, you know that I've been actually doing a little bit something new. I always give daily tips, but I've actually been using real examples of resumes, whitewashed, of course, of people's protected private information. But I'm using these real examples to help show you what mistakes are common, and maybe some of the common mistakes you have personally that you want to avoid, and a little bit of my thought process behind it. So now let's get to a quick federal update. Federal update is for the month of August, unemployment numbers dropped from 10.2% to 8.4%. So we saw almost a full 2% drop. We gained another 1.4 million jobs. So that was a good showing. Market's having its own struggles right now, not related to unemployment numbers, I don't think, but that's good news, right? We continue to get back to work. This continues to be a steady movement of unemployment numbers in the correct direction. So that's been really good news. Now let's get to our interview tips for EI and motivational interview. So first, let me tell you a little bit about what an EI interview is, okay? Emotional intelligence interviews, these are common, not so much at the beginning of the interview or the first interview, but they're going to be common starting in the second interview. They're really trying to figure out if you're going to be a culture fit, if you're going to fit with inside the team. There are going to be a lot of questions that are around, tell me about a time when, and then those questions are expecting for you, of course, to answer with an appropriate response of a specific situation and action and results. So in this discussion, we're going to talk about 4 things. We're going to talk about how you should structure your answer to these types of questions. We're going to understand why those questions are even being asked, and really the purpose behind the question, as well as where to focus. Don't get focused on the initial question. Clue. Next, we're going to be talking a little bit about how to be prepared for the follow-up questions, because those are the questions that actually get asked. And then we're also going to be discussing how the job description itself should, in most cases, predict what questions you're going to be asked with these type of thoughts in mind. So let's get to it. First, CAR. CAR is the acronym. You want to, when you answer these questions, when they say, tell me about a time you came across a job you outgrew. How did you know? Specific circumstance, the actions you took, and then the result of those actions, okay? That story should allow me as a recruiter to have follow-up questions. So realize that whatever story you give me as a setting, that's going to lead me down the rabbit hole that I start digging. So you control that. You control the narrative, and you control my follow-up questions. And frankly, as long as you give me stories where there's good lessons learned, there's good opportunities that you were able to grow from it, don't be scared. Frankly, don't be scared, because the question is meant to be difficult. So let me tell you a little bit about why we ask for specifics, okay? This is an analogy. Until I come up with a better one, I'm going to keep on using it. Let's say I asked you, what do you do when you come to a yellow light? You will, if you don't know me and trust me, and let's be honest, in a first date, you don't know, and you shouldn't trust the recruiter, not because they're going to lie to you, but they're not your friend. I've done videos on that. So be like on a first date, very open, very agreeable. But also at the same time, don't just tell everything and blurt everything out like you've known this person for years. So when I ask you a question though, about what should you do if you come to a yellow light, you're going to say, well, normally I'd slow down. Okay, so I learned you know what you should do. Now, what if I asked you, what did you do at the specific intersection outside your neighborhood this morning at 8 o'clock when you went through it? You might say, I didn't slow down, I actually sped up. Okay, so I've just learned something, right? Actually, I didn't learn anything yet at all. I've made if I stop the line of questions right there, I am just making an assumption. I am assuming you know what the right rule is to slow down at a yellow light, but for whatever reason you chose not to. But again, I'm making an assumption, and far too often we as recruiters, we make our decisions based on assumptions. We assume you went through the yellow light faster than you should have, and that was wrong, and you didn't care, even though you know the right rule. So this is why the follow-up questions for good recruiters are actually what matters. Because if I asked you a follow-up question, which would be, why? Why did you go through the yellow light faster than earlier? You might give me 3 or 4 dozen different answers as to why you did it. One could be, hey, I was going 25 miles an hour. The speed limit is 35. I knew I could make it. So I goosed it, as one of my friends would say, to 35 miles per hour, and I got through just fine. Okay, you actually sped up to go through, but you didn't break the speed limit. Or maybe there was an ambulance behind you, and the only way you could get through that, let that ambulance safely pass you, was to speed up so you can get through the intersection and safely pull over to the side of the road, because otherwise it would have been really weird for you having to pull over and there wasn't enough room for you to pull over. And there's lots of different scenarios, right? But if I don't ask those follow-up questions, and if recruiters don't ask those follow-up questions, then we're making just large assumptions based on our answers. So now let's take it to real time. If I ask you a question of tell me a time you acted inappropriately in a meeting, sadly, I have many examples. But if I asked you that question, you might have an answer, or you might just get really uncomfortable and not want to share an answer. So that's the way to do it, okay? You need to come up with some sort of answers. Now, we'll have other questions, but why am I asking you this question? I'm not asking this question to embarrass you. And if you are a recruiter, you need to have examples to share with your candidates when they ask you when you ask these kind of questions, because you need to let them know you're in a safe space. You can share with me, because truthfully, we've all done something wrong or acted in a weird way or whatever, but we need to figure out the motivation. So when you answer that question, I'm not trying to figure out what you did is wrong. What I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to figure out your self-awareness. That's what that whole question is about, self-awareness. And as soon as you realize that this question really isn't about you acting wrong, it's about your self-awareness of you making a mistake, the pressure is kind of off at that point. You're kind of more relaxed to answer the question, because you realize this really isn't the important question. The important question is going to be the next question they ask, which is why? Why did you act inappropriate? Or what was the trigger that set you off? Or what did you do after acting inappropriate? How long did it take you to realize you kind of were screwing up? Anyone you offended in the room, were you able to make amends? Did you make amends on your own? Or did you have to be told by HR to do it? Those are all the important questions. But those are the ones that sneak up on you, right? Because you're so consumed with the story you're trying to tell that often I've caught people making up stories. Because when the follow-up questions come, if that really happened, it should be really easy to answer these follow-up questions. But for whatever reason, they just can't. So realize that the questions that matter are the follow-ups. And I'm not trying to make you feel like you're a bad person. I'm just trying to get to understand why you're making the decisions you're making and what emotional intelligence is behind those decisions. So let's talk about the traits that come with emotional intelligence, okay? There's different schools of thought. I believe there's probably 10 traits of emotional intelligence, and I added two because during several searches for C-suite executives or even a couple CEOs, I realized there was a couple of additional traits that the board probably wanted for us to investigate. So I created questions for those, but I'm going to give it to you a couple of times. But emotional intelligence traits that are traditionally brought up are self-awareness, self-control, social skills, motivation, empathy, stress tolerance, flexibility, problem solving, influencing others, optimism. Those are the 10. And then I always add courage and integrity, because those really aren't emotional intelligence traits, but they are some intangible traits that people need to have in certain roles. Now, here's the thing. Each one of these traits, and I'll do it one more time a little faster: self-awareness, self-control, social skills, motivation, empathy, stress tolerance, flexibility, problem solving, optimism, influencing others. I don't know if I said that before. Influencing others, and then courage and integrity. Those 12 things are not required for every job, but some of those are required for every job. Every job requires some sort of emotional intelligence trait in order for the person to be successful. So, two traits that I always harp on with every one of my corporate clients, any one of my recruiters that I'm training, is self-awareness, self-control. We need, as professionals, to make sure that people we're letting into our organizations have those two traits, or at least are aware of their lack of self-control, which I have a lack of self-control. Now, thank God I have a good level of self-awareness, so I am able to usually pick up pretty quickly when I've made a mistake. But those are the 12 traits. And when somebody asks you a question like, tell me about a time you said something you later regretted, it's not a chance for them to get mad at you or for them to be offended. It's a chance for them to understand your motivations behind doing something. Tell me about a time you had two deadlines for two different bosses and you couldn't make both deadlines work. That's not a question of prioritizing and time management. It's actually a problem-solving question. Tell me about a time where when you did something that wasn't part of your job description. That's a motivation question. See, each one of these questions, they're not really asking you the specific situation that you're trying to tell, but they're allowing me to understand something about your self-awareness, self-control, motivation, flexibility, problem solving, etc. What's a time when you didn't have any authority to get something done, but you were able to change a policy or something like that? That's an influence question. When have you had to adapt your personality in order to work better with a coworker? That's a social skills question. All of these questions should be answered. Specific situation, your actions and the results. My follow-up questions are the ones that matter. But if you don't have any familiarity with these types of questions, reach out to me. Let me know so we can talk about them, because I want to be able to help people get through these questions, because these right now in today's market are going to be a big differentiator between you and your peers when it comes to interviewing for these roles that are out there. There are so many people looking for jobs, as we all know. Unemployment numbers are getting better. But truthfully, if it's between you and somebody else, aren't you going to want to be sure, even if there's not 500 other people up for that job, aren't you going to want to be sure that you're the best prepared for the role? Because maybe that one other person has these skills that you're trying to work on. And then the last point about this was the job description, right? The job description, believe it or not, shouldn't be, but it probably is going to be a strong template for how you should answer these questions. Often in the bottom of the job description, now, if you're one of my clients, you probably don't do this because I've told you not to. But until I get, I don't know, a few million clients, this is going to be a continuing problem for businesses. On the bottom of many job descriptions, businesses often put skill sets, or not skill sets, but like the intangibles needed. Must be a team player, must have good integrity or strong integrity, must be motivated, a self-starter. They put these things on the bottom of the job description. If they're there, make sure you know how to answer questions about those topics, because when they ask you the first question, tell me about yourself, you can then answer them just reading off that list of the job description. Now, you shouldn't read it, you should memorize it, but you should be able to say, look, I'm a self-starter that likes to be proactive with an entrepreneurial spirit as a team player who's highly flexible and adaptable to the situations I'm in. Now, maybe you're not. And if you're a recruiter and you see those on your job descriptions, remove them, because you are giving a roadmap to your candidates. I have a video about this on my YouTube channel, which now is just as good a time as any, right? To throw a quick plug in there for the YouTube channel. Check it out if you like this content. Now, while that's up there rolling around, make sure the job description, though, is purged of this type of information. But candidates, until every company follows these rules, most of the time, they're going to be on there, which means you're going to know in advance, I need to have a motivation question ready, a self-awareness question ready, a problem-solving question ready, and I need to figure out how to answer these questions, so I need to come up with scenarios like that. And once you start seeing those questions, they become a lot easier to handle, again, because you understand it's not about the question, it's about your reaction. And it's not about the setting, it's about your reaction. So anyway, thanks so much for that, and hopefully that was helpful. Now we'll get to the time where we get Q&A. Not seeing any in the live feed today, no worries, but if you do have a question, as always, I love to hear them. I love to prioritize live questions to the top of the queue, but we'll get going first. So Martha in Kansas City this week asked me, I newly graduated from college and started with a new company as a recruiter. What's some advice you can give me? Now, Martha and I had a really good conversation about this on Tuesday. And truthfully, it frustrates me that when someone is brand new to something, they throw you into recruiting. Usually, if you want to be an HR professional, you kind of first start in recruiting, which always just seems so strange to me, because as a recruiter, you need to know your company inside and out. You need to know your clients well. And you need to understand how to sell the company. And if you're brand new, you probably don't know too much about the company, or you don't know as much as you could know. But anyway, here's the deals. First, I'll focus on 3 things and then give you a bonus tip, Martha, and anybody else out there who's new to recruiting and has just started. First, you need to learn the culture of your company, okay? You need to be able to understand your clients and their needs, and you need to respect your candidates. So let's first do the learning the culture. You need to go in there. So when you get hired, hopefully you can still reach out to people, even if you're working from home. Hopefully you can instant message people, set up a coffee, a virtual coffee. Hey, I'm new to the organization. I'm hiring a person in your business group, and I just want to sit down with you. Doesn't have to be the hiring manager, should be afterwards, but I just want to learn a little bit about your team, about your culture, the things like that. Start on the micro cultures, okay, and target the positions that you're recruiting for. Then, at the same time, you should be understanding your client. You should sit down with your hiring manager, and I always do a recruiting consult. If I was recruiting an IT person for that hiring manager, maybe it's an IT infrastructure person. He already has 2 people on the team. I would close the door in his office and go, all right, you got 2 people who are infrastructure people. You're hiring a 3rd person. Tell me what your weaknesses are out there. I don't want to know who's your weakness, and I don't want to know which person has weak skills. But I want to know, what systems are you strong in? What systems are you weaker in? What systems are we upgrading soon that you really want to make sure that whoever we bring in has experience in those areas? What this is going to do, Martha, and for anyone else who's newly recruiting, it's going to build an immediate trust with your client and your hiring manager. And they're going to understand that, oh, this person isn't just trying to fill a job description. They're actually trying to fill my specific need. I like to use analogies like baseball. If I lost my left fielder for the Boston Red Sox, I don't even know who that is right now, to be honest with you. Terrible fan this year. But I don't want to just replace them with a left fielder, or I don't want to just replace them with a baseball player. I want to replace them with a left fielder who has the same batting attributes as the person I left, or I want to strengthen the batting position of that position on my field. There's a lot of things I want to do, but it's not just simply swapping out one person for another, because we all have different strengths. So you want to sit down with your hiring manager and understand the weaknesses of his team, the strengths of his or her team, and you want to make sure that whoever you're bringing in isn't just for the needs of today, but also for the challenges and potential growth for tomorrow. So understand your client, learn your culture, and respect your candidates. This is so important, and it's happening so often nowadays where candidates just get ghosted. It's been going on forever, right? We didn't have the term ghosted for it, I don't think, 6 years ago or so, but it was still happening. You are interviewing for a job and they say, hey, we're going to talk to you soon, and they never call you back. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, the job is filled. You see on LinkedIn that so-and-so got the job and it wasn't you, and no one's ever told you. Recruiters, if you're doing that, stop. Not just because you're disrespecting your candidates, but also you're screwing yourself up potentially in the future. Because let's be honest, you hire one person, you talk to a dozen people. That means if you are potentially ghosting 11 people and hiring only one, your network of people who like you is smaller than the network of people who don't like you, which is growing and growing and growing. And if you were like me and you were hiring CEOs and senior level people into organizations, I want to make sure that that network of highly influential people is as strong as possible. So if nothing else, follow up with candidates so that they know where they stand, because it'll serve you. Now, personally, I just did it because I cared about people and I wanted to know. I wanted to treat them the way I want to be treated, because we've all been on that side of the table where we just didn't get a phone call back and we just don't know why. But that's my 3 things. And then I guess the last thing is just a general philosophy. I guess they're all kind of general philosophies, right? Excuse me. But stop focusing on the hiring stats and focus more on the retention numbers, okay? It doesn't matter if you're hiring 30 people a month if you're losing 15 people every 3 months. If you're losing 50% or more people every 3 months, then you're working twice as hard than you need to be, or at least, what, 33% harder than you need to be? We need to be worried about retention numbers. You need to, if you worry about those first 3 things, the culture fit, understanding your client, and respecting your candidates, well, really those first 2 things will ensure your retention numbers are better. And if you don't really know how to focus on those areas about culture and things, that well, get better at EI interviewing, get better at motivational interviewing, which we didn't have time to cover today. I'll cover motivational interviewing next week. But make sure you're better at those things, because those are the things that ensure people stick around. There's a stat I've used. It was in 2018, Bamboo HR, pre-COVID, said out of 1,000 US employees, 31% quit within 6 months of starting a job, or were fired, but not because of technical ability. 68% of those quit within 3 months. So that means 210 people out of 1,000 are quitting a job within 3 months. An additional 100 leave within the next 3 months. So we're losing 31% of people before COVID. Now, I guarantee post-COVID, those numbers are going to dramatically uptick unless you're aware of it, okay? And this is where I help my corporate clients out a lot. If you are not strategically hiring people and you're just filling vacancies, but if you're not strategically hiring people, the people you hire today are going to leave you tomorrow, because many of them are just saying yes to the job today because they need a job, but it's not the job they want. It's not the job they're best suited for. And when the job they want and are best suited for pops up 3 months from now because this pandemic is behind us, or more in the rearview mirror, or we've adapted better to hiring through it and working through it, they're leaving you. They're going to all leave you because they just said yes because they need a job. So get better at assessing talent. And that's also why I struggle with when you throw someone into recruiting if they haven't done it before, because how are they going to be strong at assessing people's truthfulness or veracity, I like to say. I don't know. It's a struggle. All right. Next. Again, if you have a question, feel free to type it in, but if not, no worries. Reggie and Austin asked me, actually, this was last Friday, my resume is an awkward 1.25 pages long. Should I grow it to 2 pages or shrink it to 1 page? If I grow it, what can I add? Now, he asked if we should add hobbies as well. So a lot of times if it's, I don't really care how long your resume is, but I do understand it's a little awkward if it's just 3 or 4 lines bleeding over into a 2nd page. Now, usually you can alleviate that with some formatting, and you can figure out how to make the margins a little bit narrower, so to make your words a little longer. You can maybe remove 1 or 2 lines and suck it up. But if it's a full 1/4 page, that is going to be tough to absorb on 1 page. So I do think in this case, it might make sense to grow your resume to not be 2 pages. Don't think you have to go from 1.25 to now find 3/4 of crap to put in there. But adding a new section wouldn't be bad. And often people forget about community involvement. That's a great section because it shows your passions. It usually will have areas that you're successful in because you're passionate about it. You can usually come up with a few accomplishments. And just by putting community involvement, space, an organization with dates, and your job, so community involvement, space, organization, name, dates, your job you did there, you've come up with 4 extra lines now. Now you just come up with 2 bullets, 2 lines each, and you've got 8 new lines. You've now pulled it into 2 pages or 1.5 pages. And it looks less awkward. So I don't believe really putting hobbies though on a resume, because I have had a client that did say, look, we're a really extreme company. We like doing our board meetings at rock climbing walls, but that's just so few and far between. I don't really think hobbies should be on a resume unless they're somehow related. Maybe you're applying to a sports and outdoors type of company, and you want to show that you're a sporting outdoor kind of person. Well, that makes sense. I actually recently did a resume for a semi-professional soccer player who is going to be applying for different coaching jobs. Well, guess what? His hobbies are aligned with the jobs he's applying for. So it makes sense. And remember, there's no absolute statements, but in my general feeling, hobbies probably don't belong on your resume. All right. Now I get a lot of questions about ageism. So yesterday on LinkedIn, I had 2 people ask me about ageism and is it real? And they're struggling to get their resume noticed by the right people. And what I answered for them yesterday is I want to make sure I share the questions the same week, so that way I don't miss a question that other people might have. And if I'm getting this question weekly, then I know new viewers every week are wondering. In my opinion, ageism is real. If you are a certain age, you're not going to be considered for a certain job. But that's the thing. It's a certain job. Okay. I don't believe, first of all, I have hired, again, high level people for boards of directors. And I've never once had a board of directors tell me, we don't want somebody that's over the age of fill in the blank. But I have had boards of directors tell me, we don't want someone that's younger than this age, because wisdom comes with age comes with experience, or whatever. Experience comes with wisdom. I don't know. Bottom line, all three of those go together, right? You can't be experienced if you don't have any age, and then you can't be necessarily wise if you don't have the experience. That seems to make better sense. So they go together, but ageism exists if you're 60 years old and you're applying to a job that a 25-year-old can do. You're probably not going to get hired for a plethora of reasons. One, probably first, most importantly, salary. I am going to assume, or the recruiter is going to assume, you're too expensive. We're next going to assume you're just taking the job because, well, you need a job. That's not really what you want to do. Three, maybe we're in a growth organization and we don't see you at 60 being able to grow with the organization 20 years from now, where we're going to want this position to be. There's lots of assumptions I can make, but bottom line, that's going to hold you back if you're applying to jobs that younger, inexperienced people can do. If you're applying to roles that are your peer levels doing it, then you're going to be just fine, and you need to find the right opportunity, but don't let that discourage you too much. There was one other point I wanted to make about that, and I can't seem to remember it, so I'm sorry. But be sure that when you're applying to things, you're applying to things that match your skill sets up. If you are applying, and I had several clients, and I actually have a consult with someone tomorrow who is a senior level person, not senior like C-suite, but certainly a director level, and they're kind of sick of leading a team. They really are passionate about doing the work, getting in the procedures, doing data, doing stuff like that. So if you don't want me to assume something and I'm only going to scan your resume, you need to have a cover letter with that resume. It says, look, as you look at my background, you're going to see I'm a director. And you might be wondering, why the heck am I applying to this analyst role? Well, the truth is I don't like being a director. I don't like having 15 direct reports. I prefer to be my own, I prefer to be what's it called? An individual contributor. And I miss that. And I'm really passionate about that. I want to do that. That will get you a call back if you're the right fit for the role. You not having a cover letter, though, and me seeing director, and then applying for an analyst will get your resume pushed to the can of do not respond, and you will get an email from me saying thanks, but no thanks. We don't want to move forward with you at this time. Next question I got yesterday was about weakness. What's a good answer to the question, what's your greatest weakness? Now, this is an interesting question because there's lots of schools of thought, I think, on these questions. But in general, I think there's two reasons why this question gets asked. One, it's on the script, okay? The recruiter has a script of questions they need to ask, and they don't really know why they're asking it, but it's on the script, and they're gonna ask it. And the way you can figure it out if it's on the script or not is because it happens randomly in the conversation. You're interviewing with the person, you're talking about this, and there, and then all of a sudden, all right, that question's done. Thanks so much, Joe. Appreciate it. Hey, what's your greatest weakness? It's on the script, okay? They have to ask it for whatever reason, or they feel like they have to ask it, or there's 10 minutes left to kill. I got everything I need. I got to kill it with something. What's your greatest weakness? That's reason one why it's being asked. Reason two, it goes back to the scenario we talked about earlier with the IT person. Reason two it's asked is because I know that my hiring manager has some weak links on his team. Maybe not weak people, but weak skills. And I am trying to make sure that the person I hire doesn't just duplicate those weaknesses. I want to make sure the person I hire has the strengths. But the way you answer the question is honestly. I mean, I am flawed. I'm a human being. I have lots of weaknesses. If you ask my wife, I'm sure she'll tell you I have a lot of weaknesses. But I'll make sure that I tell something that's truthful. But I'm not going to do the whole Michael Scott, which is, you know what? my weakness is I work so hard that my family life suffers, or I'm just too dedicated to my job. That's crap, okay? Don't answer questions like that. Talk to people with reality and truthfulness. Look, my weakness, as you can tell from me being a fast talker, is I'm a fast talker, I'm a fast processor, I'm a fast typer. What does that not mean? That means that if I type you an email, there's probably going to be typos in it. I am not a fast proofreader. Resumes, completely different. I have to justify that because I do resumes for a living and I help people with their resumes. Resumes, I take my time. It's not a speeding contest. It's about a good product. So I sit there, I dive into it, and I go line by line, and I meticulously go through every detail. But if you and I are emailing back and forth about a project that is just a casual conversation, it's going to be riddled with typos because I'm the guy that pushes send and then proofreads. I'm getting better at it, and I recognize that early on in my career, I would send it to anybody, whoever I was talking to, the VP to the candidate. Type real fast, push send. My professional communications have come a long way in 15, 16 years. But my personal communication still struggle because my guard is down. I'm just relaxed. I talk fast. And I want to get the information out there. So, but with the weakness questions, make sure you try something relevant. Don't just sugarcoat it. Really talk about a weakness. Talk about how you've grown from that weakness. Talk about how it used to be really bad. Now it's just kind of bad. But those will go such a longer way. And also if it's technical weakness, if they say, technically wise, what systems are you strong and what are you weak in? If you're an SAP person, you never touch Oracle, well, I'm really weak in Oracle. But it's an SAP company, so it's a safe answer, right? But make sure that you're trying to give an honest answer because that'll build the best rapport. All right, thank you so much. This month, if you don't know, I'm doing a 30 for 30. I'm trying to do 30 resume consults in 30 days. As of yesterday, or as of this morning, I'm up to 9 consults for the month. We are on day 10, and I have 2 tomorrow. So we are right on target for 30 for 30. But if you have somebody in your network who you think needs their resume looked at, a resume consult for me is not a sales pitch. A resume consult for me is me sitting down with you, either via coffee, virtually on Zoom, sharing your resume up on my screen, telling you what I think you need to do to make it stronger, free of charge. Then if you end up thinking that you want to partner with me, well, then we talk about that. But that's at the back end. It's a solid 30 minutes of me helping you, followed by a 1-minute discussion of, well, if you want to partner together, here's what makes sense. But truthfully, 25 or 30% of the time, I talk the person out of partnering with me because they don't need me and they can do it. And I believe in them. But some people, they're just too busy. They don't have the time. They really have a lot of issues that we need to work through. But those are the people that need my help the most. So anyway, if you know anybody in your network that could use my help, please let me know. Follow me on Instagram. Remember, tips a day. This week I was doing live shots of my tips of what while I'm working on resumes. But just follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And as always, if you know anybody in your network that I can help, or if I can be of help to you, let me help you, show you how to get the job. Talk to you next time. See you later. Bye.